Just start, take that first step. Everything will unfold from there. And don't forget to manifest. Don't forget to dream. Only if you dream, really, you can see or make a pathway to get there.
Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve.
Welcome to the Dream Big and Think Different podcast, where we inspire, impact, and empower.
Progress is impossible if you always do things the way you have always done things.
It's time to dream big. Here's your host, Dr. Sachin Maskey.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Dream Big and Think Different podcast, where our mission is to inspire, impact, and empower millions of people. And I'm your host, Dr. Sachin Maskey. Today, we have a very special and interesting guest who is another dreamer, Nischal Banskota, who is also called as Nish here in the United States, and has a very, very interesting story that we all need to hear. I'm very honored and privileged and excited to have Nish in our podcast today. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Dr. Sachin. It was really honored to be here. I am doing fantastic. It's been a while since we caught up, so I'm really super excited to kind of talk about a lot of different things, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just to give you a perspective, everyone who's listening to the podcast, I initially, as far as I remember, around 2018 or 19, I think I found Nish, fortunately, I was just Googling somewhere, I found him. He has his own website, and I found him very interesting. He's from Nepal originally, and I think I reached out to him, emailed him, I believe, and we spoke. And at that time, he started his company, I guess, which is called the Nepal Tea Collective right now, which is doing amazing, by the way. We're going to learn more about that. And I guess I'm, again, very excited and honored today to have you in our show. I'm going to start with your bio, Nish, if that's okay with you.
Yes, absolutely.
And then we're going to talk about our today's podcast would be mostly focused on the tea, which is the one of the world's second largest drink, I guess, after the water. Mm-hmm. And the people have been drinking for years, and also this is going to be a more like a why social impact, and also we're going to talk about crowdfunding. With that, I would like to start with Nish bio. Nischal Banskota is a second generation tea producer and the founder of Nepal Tea Collective, which is a social enterprise which directly brings certified organic teas all the way from Nepal to the world and bridges the ever-widening gap between the farmers and the consumers. With a family lineage of 40 years in the tea industries, his entrepreneurial journey begins when he was just 17 years old, and he aims to get 1 million farmers out of the poverty within their generation and within his lifetime. Nepal Tea Collective, Nish also started Nepal First Tea Bar in 2015. With that, I guess, again, I would like to welcome you. And my first question today for Nish is, who is Nish and why he's in this world?
Thank you, Dr. Sachin. Thanks for the bio and the intro. And again, really glad to be here. Well, that's a very interesting question. I don't know if I've ever thought about why was I put into this world, but to really kind of go back and kind of like think about this perspective of who I am in general. I always refer to myself as a second generation tea producer. Really because of the value of tea and the tea industry and, how I got into all of these things, which I'll talk about later. But I generally think about, to give it a blank statement, I think of myself as a decently privileged person and who wants to use that privilege to help others, to serve. And that is basically that statement that revolves around, whatever I do in general, be it tea or any other work or anything. I think I am privileged to be able to come to the United States for my undergrad, to be able to start a business, to be able to employ more than 10 people and do all of that. I feel privileged, but I really want to use that privilege, and I have been using that privilege to really help people who might otherwise or might not have some of these opportunities, or who are less privileged than myself, which is I want to think there's a lot of people in many different parts of the world that I can impact. So that's how I would say who I am, I guess.
Sure, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. And honestly speaking, I agree with that. We all have God gifted talents, and we are so honored and grateful for what we have. And I like what you just said, that you're privileged and you want to serve and help people, which is the same mindset I have too. But I guess it's an interesting journey you have taken all the way from Nepal. And I want to go back to your childhood now and start with your childhood. Basically, this is another question I always ask my guests. What was your childhood dream when you was a kid, around, I don't know, 7, 8 years old?
Yeah.
If you remember.
Yeah. That was the thing. I'm just trying to think about what did I actually want to become when I was a child. I remember once. I think we used to get this question a lot when we were in Nepal. Like, what do you want to become? Like, as early as like fifth grade or whatever. Like, we used to
Absolutely.
get these questions, I think. But for some reason, I had always this mindset of going to the military. For
Okay.
some reason, I had
Really?
no clue. Now that I'm reflecting back, I have no idea why I had this mindset of getting into the army or the police, and kind of like becoming a general there. So I
Okay.
don't know where does it stem from, where it
That's
came from.
interesting.
Yeah, but now that I'm thinking about, I used to tell everyone I would want to become Inspector General, when I was a kid. I don't
Hmm.
know. I think now that I'm reflecting back and kind of like thinking about what I'm doing right now, completely different paths, obviously. But then
Absolutely.
I think one thing that remains similar is kind of like that serving part, which is basically, being in the military or the police. One thing that is also true is you're serving people and the nation and the world in many different ways. It's a completely different form, but at the same time, I think that mindset of being able to serve is kind of still there. Completely
Hmm.
different with T, completely different thing. But at the same time, I think it's that's that. Now that I'm remembering it, it was Inspector General for some reason.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, I guess in being in Nepal, you probably know this, but we have very limited option. To be honest with you, I mean, my father told me you can be either doctor, like pilot, and an engineer. Those are three, like in terms of socioeconomic status. But I mean, my dream had changed on the course of my life too. So I'm doing different things now.
Mhm.
But I honestly think. Whatever you're doing, and you're doing amazing, and we're going to dig more of detail in a few minutes. But I just want to talk more about your journey in Nepal also. So you were born in the eastern part of Nepal, if
Yeah.
I'm not wrong.
Yeah, my whole story begins in the eastern part of the Himalayas. So basically, born in eastern Fidim, which is the absolute east of Nepal.
Uh-huh.
And then I am told that I was brought to Kathmandu, which is the capital city,
Yep.
when I was 17 months.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
I don't necessarily remember anything from my very early childhood in the eastern part of Nepal. I kind of associate my identity and everything upbringing to Kathmandu itself.
Okay.
Um, and From there on, to the journey to the US was quite interesting, to be honest. So very From coming, I went to a Jesuit school. So for 10 years, I studied in St. Xavier's, which is one of the nice schools in Kathmandu itself. And it was an all boys school at that
Yep.
time. Um, and yeah, studied there for 10 years. Very good exposure, I would say. One of the reasons being, St. Xavier's was also very well known for the diversity it had
Absolutely.
in terms of people from very different socioeconomic backgrounds and many different geographies, right? So I think it
Exactly.
was that also played into my upbringing for 10 years about being into that. And then after that, I went to a college nearby, but one thing I knew for sure was the
Mm-hmm.
education that is in Nepal. I was
Mm-hmm.
not really satisfied with what I was getting. I am more of a person, I can remember till then was, uh, I knew I could ace these exams in Nepal. And it is because, it is more theoretical based education where, you basically know what are you going to be questioned on and what are the exams like, what are the typical
Yeah.
answers should look like. And if you can memorize, you can ace any exams in Nepal, basically, right? So it's more of an memorization rather than understanding part of things. So I always knew that I wanted to go somewhere else for education because the
Sure.
infrastructure or the system was not necessarily great. So my brother came to the US in 2000, and I would hear stories about his classes and what he was getting into and all of that. So I was like, yes, I'm going to the US. Like that was it. Basically, if I stay here, the education system is going to be very much of a memorization rather than understanding learning. And I wanted to go to the US for that reason. And being the youngest of 8 children,
Yeah.
it was not uh, easy for me to convince my mom that I would also go to someplace else for my studies. But I actually went. And then during that time, one thing that led to me going to the college that I went to, which is Colby Sawyer College, was
Hmm.
I was always debating about which kind of college or university to go to, which is one is a liberal arts college where, it's a small little environment where just 1,000, 2,000 people,
Right.
everybody, and small environment, but you have a very good relationships with, everybody basically. And you're going to be kind of like this, you have an opportunity, I guess, to become a big fish in a small pond, I guess,
Hmm.
right? And then there's the other part where state universities, where there's tens of thousands of people, but that's a clear path to your career. Where
Right.
you get into this program and you have certain levels of academics and all of that. Big companies come to recruit you and all of that. Your
Hmm.
career path is set. And again, that was again a big debate on where do I go. And then I found this, and also obviously coming from Nepal, finances was was the number one factor that I would decide on.
Yeah.
So applied to almost like 22 colleges. I got into about
Wow.
8 colleges, and very good colleges, but the scholarships and all of that didn't make sense. Uh,
Hmm.
and so Kobe Star College offered a full tuition scholarship. So I paid nothing for my education except for room and board.
Sure.
So basically, I came here thinking about that. And I came to New York first, which is a completely different part, and then went to New Hampshire where my college was. And I thought I was
Okay.
in a completely different country, just because the drastic changes in what New York was versus what I
Absolutely.
was versus what I was seeing in the movies and everything about the U.S. And coming to
Yeah.
New Hampshire,
Yeah.
New London, a small little town in New London, New
Yeah.
Hampshire, it was a complete drastic change. But then, yeah, I got to studied in that college for 4 years, 4 years of liberal arts college, and I would not trade that for anything else. I
Hmm.
would really not trade that for anything else because um, that really taught me so much about myself and
Hmm.
so much about what I wanted to do. And the college itself has so much kind of created this pathway for me to do what I'm doing right now.
Hmm.
Knowingly, unknowingly, it has really created that path where, one of the major things I take, obviously there's a lot of, I got what I wanted in terms of academics where, memorization was nothing and it was all about learning and small
Yes.
class sizes, going and drinking with the professors, having that really nice relationship. It was just really so much fun, and the learning
Hmm.
environment was so great. One of the biggest learnings, I think, if I had to talk about, what is that one thing you learned out of college, was
Hmm.
for me how I always debated about, it was a small little college, like 1,000 people. So there weren't many opportunities or things that I could become a part of, right?
Sure.
So if I was very interested, so other colleges and universities, there's like hundreds and hundreds of different clubs and organizations, programs, all of these things. You could easily find something that you would like and become a part of it.
Sure.
And this was a tiny little college, very limited resources. And, there wasn't many things that I could get involved in, which I liked.
Hmm.
So, which can be thought of as a very, uh, you know, uh, bad way of thinking is, oh, there's not a lot of things to do. But I think being the person that I am, I found opportunities within that where, oh, I'm interested in this, the college does not have this, I get an
Hmm.
opportunity to create that, which is
Right.
such a fascinating thing. So my whole learning from the college has been, opportunities are not where resources are, abundant. uh,
Yes.
Opportunities are there where, resources are super limited. And,
Hmm.
if there is very limited resources, it forces you to create stuff and not just become
Absolutely.
a part of something, right?
Yeah.
And so that was my biggest learning from the college. And I always credit how much, the college environment has taught me about, so many practical things in life.
Yes.
Just, making so many decisions. And just I learned how to do my taxes while I was in college. We had a tax class, we had
Yeah.
personal finance class, and it was just
Absolutely.
I loved ceramics, right? It was like making ceramics in that wheel and all of that, and the practical education about, we used to, all these
Hmm.
marketing classes would have simulation of running a business and
Wow.
becoming like the board and all of that. So it was very, very immersive and practical education that I was always striving for.
Sure.
And then I think that was kind of my biggest learning. And right when I graduated, that was also the time when we were hit by the biggest earthquake
Yeah.
in Nepal in 2015. So I did have my lined up banking job, but I was not necessarily wanting to do that. So I came
Hmm.
back to Nepal and found some opportunities with actually doctors to go and do some volunteer work for earthquake relief. And then loved the fact that, I was giving back in so many different aspects. And then one specific thing during my college years was, again, talking about the opportunities. I had this opportunity to go back to Nepal, and I was taking students from Nepal to one of the rural parts, and, building classrooms and all of that. That is what I loved. And I'll
Yes.
tell you a
Yes.
story later about it. But
So yeah,
yeah,
definitely, definitely.
but then I think it was more, I came back to Nepal, and kind of serving, that part was always very much enticing to me. So I
Sure.
really wanted to merge my business degree
Yep.
and also take into account my passion for social impact, and
Hmm.
find a way to do something about it. And kind
Sure.
of like tea was kind of this catalyst of social change, as I call it.
Yep.
And that was kind of my calling. And, with tea, I can really create a business for myself and for
Absolutely.
others. And at the same time, really work on my passion for social impact. So that was kind of like the whole culmination of how everything came together. And
Sure.
now I'm selling tea here.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really appreciate your sharing your whole journey. I was a couple of questions there about why you came to US, basically for further education. I believe you came in 2000, if I'm
11.
not 11, right?
Yeah.
2011. You went to college. You told about your experience, your learning. That's amazing, man. So my question to you, I'm trying to think here as you are talking more about your journey.
Hmm.
So you started this company called Nepal Tea Collective
Hmm.
back in 2016, right? When did you had started having the dream
Hmm.
of having that company, and why did you started this in 2016? And we're gonna dig more into details, but that's my first question.
Yeah, so a few things actually. So one thing was business, or kind of, like something that I wanted to do on my own.
Mm-hmm.
As I reflect back and kind of like connect the dots, it was always within me. And
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, I had started with one of my current co-founders. He and I started our business. The first venture, I guess, was a very humble idea of printing T-shirts when we were in seventh grade in Nepal itself.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was good at art. So I was very good at art. So, and he
Mm-hmm.
was very good at this, finding these T-shirts at wholesale prices at one of the like this place, and he would come like, you know what, I'm gonna buy this at a wholesale rate. You paint on it, and then we sell it. That's kind of like our business, and it completely
That's
failed.
amazing.
Obviously, it failed totally.
Yeah.
But then right after school, after 10th grade, you know how colleges or high school in Nepal is like half a day. So
Yeah.
I was always curious about what do I do with the rest of my day? Like my education, half of the day is gone. Now I have this full half day. What do we do? And then we knew like you're coming to the US, you would want to have, some more experience or something extra that you had done. And we had heard, how people had started many different things. And I, along with my friend, his name is Amigo, and he and I and five other very much like-minded friends had the same idea about, how do we start a newspaper in Nepal? Like newspaper that talks about youth engagement in politics, or youth, not just engagement, but like education of, politics and how politics affects us, and, just current affairs and all of that. Why don't we start that? So seven of us in a tea shop, we started this newspaper called Vibes. It's still,
really?
yeah, you can still see that. It's called Vibes Nepal. And then we started.
I didn't know this. I
Yeah.
used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is quite funny, actually. So seven of us started this newspaper right when we were in our high school.
Wow.
Half of the day we'd do that. Right after college or high school, we would go to this one cafe where we would work, and we learned designing ourselves, writing, and all of that. We basically made ourselves learn a lot of these skills, and then we started publishing. So when we started with zero investments, and by the end of the year, we had 30 volunteers working for us. Doing everything, and we were publishing one newspaper every single month. It was a solid newspaper where, interestingly, at the end of the year, what happened was a bigger it was so interesting that a photojournalist from Al Jazeera actually found out about us, and he was like, "You guys are doing pretty amazing. Where do you work from?" And we're like, "Just a cafe." And he was like, "You know what? I'm going to give you my office. Just take my office and work from there." So we, in the middle of the whole year, we actually got a big office with like, computers and everything, and we could work from there. And this is coming from a photojournalist from Al Jazeera. And then it was so much fun. We had really a time of understanding how does business works, and I was thriving in that situation. I liked that more than my high school, obviously. And then at the end of the year, what happened was a bigger newspaper publishing company wanted to buy us. And imagine, we are like 18-year-olds, 17, 18-year-olds getting into our first boardroom, and another company wanting to buy us. And we were like, wow, this is quite crazy. And they were like, you know what, we'll buy you out. You can use our office. You can still do work on the newspaper, blah, blah, blah. And then the only thing was, our newspaper's name obviously is going to be on top, and your newspaper, like Vibes or whatever, is going to be somewhere in the bottom, and small little ones, right? That was one thing we said no to. So we said no. And then we didn't sell, right? But then what happened was, just about 3 months after that, of the 7 founders got visas to the US, and everybody came to the US, and the paper died.
Yes, but I have known the name Vibes. Honestly speaking, it's been like quite a while ago, but I still remember the name.
Yeah. So it was fun. It was fun building that, but a lot of learning lessons. And then I keep on using those same lessons to the next step of my, I guess, career, or, next phases, I guess. So because of the newspaper that I had built, and I knew designing and all of that, I was actually I got a first on-campus job on day 2 that I was on in the US in my college. Because I went to the International Diversity Office and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm a founder of this newspaper. I don't think you have a newspaper yet. Can I make you a newspaper?" And then I started making international diversity newsletters. And then, and then I got my first on-campus job right there. So it
Amazing.
was all of that. So business was always kind of creating stuff. I think rather than business, I think creating new things was always within me. And
Hmm.
this tea and just the business and thinking about this specific business was not necessarily there for a while. Right
Hmm.
around end of the last year, senior year of my college, but
Hmm.
then I knew I would want to do something for myself. I don't
Sure.
think I would be a good employee. I always knew I would definitely become a decent employer, but I don't think I could ever work for anybody. That was kind of my understanding at this point. I could do a solid job, yes. I could do a solid job of working for others, but I would never be happy doing that.
Sure.
Is what I knew towards the end of my college years, and that dream was there, and that was validated time and again with these other instances that I did in college and everything. So yeah, the dream
Sure.
was always there.
So that's an interesting story. So I think what I would like to know now is what is, you started in 2016. What exactly this is in Nepal Tea Collective, so that
Mhm.
my listener can know more about it, and I want to learn more about the tea of Nepal and why is the best tea and all that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So Nepalti Collective, it is a social enterprise. That's how I label my company, and
Sure.
also we are a public benefit corporation, which I can dive into a little bit later what that is and how that changes everything. But
Mhm.
so what we generally do is Nepali teas have won several awards, are very high quality, have a very different taste and profiles and all of that, but they've been under the shadows. We have
Mhm.
been producing organic teas and teas in general. Nepal as a country has been producing amazing teas for the last 40, 50 years. But because of a lot of different reasons, we have not been able to create an identity for ourselves uh,
Mhm.
in the international market,
Sure.
because a lot of 96% of what we export is kind of mixed with other teas around the world and kind of like sold as generic teas. It
Okay.
is not necessarily said that it is from Nepal, or it is from it is produced in Nepal and all of that. So
So
because of
your family, just want to go back to the starting the journey on tea in your family. It started in 1960, correct?
yeah, so again, my father's dream started in 1960. The company formally started in 1984. So we have been
Okay.
producing for over 40 years now. But he was also a big dreamer.
Right.
What he had envisioned was when he was about 15, 15 years old, he had this opportunity to go to Darjeeling, right next to the border. And what he saw over there was, Nepali people actually working in those gardens
Yeah.
and living a decent life. And he was reflecting back to his own village where
Right.
people were having a lot of difficult times actually putting food on their plates. And
Right.
he had this big dream of hey, you know what? I want to start tea here. Like, I want to start a tea farm. So he basically went to all of these elderly people who would make decisions in the village, and also
Mm-hmm.
had some extra land, because obviously to plant teas you need land. And
Mm-hmm.
he was a 15-year-old, didn't have anything. So he went to all of these elderly people, told him that, hey, I saw this in Darjeeling. Why don't we? It's a similar kind of terroir and climate and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can produce amazing teas here. So he pitched to all of these elderly villages saying, why don't you give me all of their unused land, and I will
Mm-hmm.
start planting teas, and we will start a company. And
Sure.
everybody laughed at him. Everybody basically ridiculed him, like a 15-year-old pitching and the whole idea about starting a tea company and basically getting the community out of poverty with tea and all of that. So nothing really happened. So they just ridiculed him. And then it takes 4 years for the tea plants to mature after it is planted, ready for production. So
Wow.
he and my mom basically planted the first tea bush in their own garden, own backyard. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that backyard is still there with like those four seeds, 4 trees that are still growing. And so they planted those 4 seeds and then a little bit more in their backyard. And then it takes 4 years. So after 4 years, there was no more convincing. More than 100 farmers saw what was happening over there, and they were like, "Oh, this guy's actually serious." So basically, all of these villagers came together, and then they pooled their lands, like small little lands here and there, pooled their unused lands, and then gave that land to my father, saying, "Hey, you know what? You're not joking. Try. Okay, let's start making teas." So with that model, what happened was all of these farmers, when whoever gave him the land, became shareholders of the company, and they were not just employees now. They were those villagers that were working
Part of the company.
but at the same time they were owners of the company. And
Right.
so it was the first almost like a cooperative model of a tea farm itself. And that is
That's
kind of
amazing.
the beauty of the tea garden that we have. Is it is not just owned by one family or anything. It's really about the community and people
Sure.
who are working there. People who initially gave land are the people that own it.
Right.
And that they also started this more of a community program where all of the full-time farmers, they get free housing if they cannot afford one now. The almost 2,300, every single full-time farmer's children go to we as a company provide scholarships for them to go to school. So till date, the factory has provided scholarships, almost 2,500 scholarships
Wow.
for all of the children to go to school. We have more than 40 success stories of children who have gotten 14, 15 years of scholarship. And they're now doctors, engineers, and veterinarians, and so many different professions, and even government employees that they have been able to take their families to the next level of economic
Sure.
stability. So that was the whole model of the farm itself, where it was not just about making tea and making profit, but really about how can tea become a catalyst for social change. And
Right.
you will be fascinated when you go there, because what it was like 30, 40 years ago when that farm started versus what it is now, it's unimaginable. And that is, I'm not saying tea was the only factor that happened that changed the whole community, but tea was actually the catalyst for this
Right.
development. And because of that, now it's a thriving village where, there's so many people that have started so many other tea gardens, and the whole community has benefited from that, just that tea leaf, just that start of that tea leaf. So that's kind of like the impact of what a single leaf, or just that small little idea, the big dream of creating this tea
Sure.
company, really has played out in my upbringing, and seeing my father and my mother and my family really working for tea, and how tea has really become this catalyst for this change in the community, the development of the community in the rural Nepal. That is very inspiring, and that is where I grew up with. And I think that also maybe was kind of like the influence to an extent, where everybody was very much of an entrepreneurial person in our family, and they were really working towards that. And I think that also got into my blood.
Yes, yes. So yeah, absolutely. So a couple of questions about the tea in Nepal again, because I want to make sure that I want to make sure why the Nepal Tea Collective is a very unique and very special, and we're trying to bring not only tea but whole identity of Nepal to the world, right?
Yes.
So basically, so why you think like the tea back home is very like special, and there's certain factor involved in the
Oh, yes.
elevation and all that. If we can talk about that, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So Nepal, just to get into not into too much technicals, but there's a
Yes.
few things. But there's a few things that make Nepali teas very special. So first thing is, in tea production, you have to think of tea as like fine wine. So not necessarily as a commodity beverage, but really think of it as like whiskey and wine. So now, when you go back to that comparison, wine, it's the same grapes, right? At the end of the day, it's made from grapes. Tea, it's
Absolutely.
made from one plant. That's it. every single tea in the world is made from one single plant, which is called Camellia sinensis. That is the only tea plant. There's no other tea plant. So that plant,
So
one
it
of
is
the
a seeds or like it's a, how do you like grow?
through seeds, and also you can do cuttings. So
Okay.
both ways. Uh, but this Camellia sinensis, it's such an interesting plant, and the reason this is special, the geography is special, is Nepali teas. They're in a very tea production area. They are in a very specific microclimate. And what microclimate basically is it's a very volatile climate in the tea producing regions. So
Mm-hmm.
think about the winds coming from the Himalayas from the north, and then the warm winds coming from Bay of Bengal from India. And
Mm-hmm.
so all of these kind of match and create this interesting microclimate within that region of Nepal, where they mix
Interesting.
a very volatile climate.
Mm-hmm.
And contrary, it might be a little counterintuitive, but the more volatile the environment and elevation, that actually helps the tea plant create a lot more flavors, and it becomes more flavorful, because tea plant is such a versatile plant that the more you stress it,
Mm-hmm.
more you create conditions which it cannot thrive, it
Right.
actually starts creating a lot of defense mechanism to adapt to those situations. And to adapt to those, it creates a lot of compounds or flavor, few compounds. One of the compounds is flavonoids,
Mm-hmm.
and flavonoids is just a defense mechanism for those teas to survive in that difficult, volatile environment. And these
Mm-hmm.
flavonoids convert into flavors when you're tasting. So that it really creates a completely different kind of teas for Nepal itself. That's one. The soil that is in where the tea is made is also very different. It's a lot more acidic, which is what you want for tea plants, and
Mm-hmm.
also very much of minerals and all of that really coming down from the Himalayas that really create a very good pristine soil that the
Mm-hmm.
tea plants can thrive on. And the terroir is really important for what kind of teas you want to produce. Third thing is the age of the bushes. So the age of the bushes, like you might think, like, our tea bushes are about 30, 40, 50 years old, which is young compared to bushes from many different parts of the world. There's like 200, 300 years old bushes which are mature, and it's going to create a little different varieties.
Mm-hmm.
But the all of the teas coming from Nepal is going to have a lot of floral characters. Even in
Mm-hmm.
black teas, you're going to have such floral characters, which is because the age of the bushes are very young. They're younger bushes, and that really creates a nice flavors. And the last one is, I always like to talk about the people, where people, the tea makers that are making all of these teas, when you think about a tea maker in many parts of the world, it is old people with generations and generations of experience, doing the same craft for number of tens or twenties of years. And yes, that is great, obviously, but the tea makers in Nepal are young,
Mm.
which is what differentiates us from many different parts of the world. Our youngest tea maker is 21 years old.
Wow.
He has gotten this knowledge of making teas directly from his family, because he was from a tea making family. Plus, there's a teacher who's teaching all of these young people to make teas, so they have that experience of how to make teas. They know the science behind it.
Right.
Now, because they are young, they are not, they are willing to experiment a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why they can really create some of these interesting teas, which the world has never even seen. And so they're able to use their passion for experimentation is so great. And that is
Amazing.
also why Nepali teas are so experimental and very unique in the world, because it's being made by all of these young individuals. And these are teas that have won, almost just last year we won 12 awards.
Wow.
12 awards, international awards, that were judged from tea experts from many different countries, and there were more than 200 farms all over the world competing for that. And
Mm-hmm.
our teas like won almost 12 awards just last year.
Wow.
It is all from these young people who are making all of these amazing teas. They have that passion for experiments and all of that stuff.
Sure.
So
That's
it's all of those things coming together that make Nepali teas really really unique. And also, it's really about the people that are actually making all of these teas.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Interesting. And I have actually bought the tea from Nepal actually, and I guess the branding is different in Nepal, but it's amazing tea. If anybody has not tasted, we all need to taste the tea from Nepal. And I guess other question I'm trying to because of time here, trying to put some of the important things we want to discuss today. It's Nepal Tea Collective. I think it's not only like a regular company, but it's a public benefit corporation. And one of the mission
Right.
I think I really like about the company is to impact a millions farmers out of poverty by selling this delicious tea from Nepal directly from the farmers to the consumers instead of going to other third party and all that. That's the reason I like the whole thing about you, and
Mhm.
we have started this mission. So tell me more about this public benefit corporation and how are you going to impact this millions of farmers.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. My personal dream and the vision for the company itself is really to get 1 million farmers out of poverty within their generation and within our
Wow.
lifetime. So that is kind of like a blank statement of what we want to achieve by working on this company and building this company. So when you think about public benefit corporation, it's the same for-profit company.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one word change when you think
Mm-hmm.
about it is we reap for a company or a for-profit company. The one thing is the fiduciary duty of a company is to create value for the shareholders, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now what we did was we converted into a public benefit corporation, which is still a for-profit company. Yes, of course, it's a for-profit company. We just changed one word, which is
Mm-hmm.
we changed the shareholders to stakeholders. So now our fiduciary duty as a company is to create value for not just the shareholders, but every single stakeholder, which
Mm-hmm.
includes even the farmer that sold us 1 kilo of tea. So
Okay.
now that is the fundamental change that we did in our business, which has really become kind of like the cornerstone or the reason why we are unique in terms of business itself is
Absolutely.
yes, we're creating value for everybody. We're not necessarily just fixated on the shareholders because
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you're fixated on just creating value for the shareholders, the money conversation is always the prime thing. And you necessarily don't focus too much on the impact side of things. But we want to really bring out both of those in the equation. So when we have public benefit corporation and stakeholders as our fiduciary duty of creating value for every single stakeholder, that
Mm-hmm.
completely changes the game for us. We're still for-profit company, of course, but at the
Yes.
same time, we want to take care of every single stakeholder and really get that 1 million farmers out of poverty. And we do that in many different ways. We share 1% of our top line revenue directly to the farmers, which
Okay.
what that does is it really empowers the farmers to really make better product, sell it to us at a better price so that they can get a better 1% value in the next time. So it really makes them
Absolutely.
partners and not just suppliers. And that really changes the game
Whole
for them.
dynamics.
That's the way they see their way out of poverty because right now
Absolutely.
the global tea industry is not fair. It's not fair for the producers. There's companies doing millions and millions. It's a multi-billion dollar industry, but at the same time, the farmers, the people who are plucking these teas, live under $2 a day, and that's not fair.
Mm.
For the beverage that is world's second most popular beverage, there's almost 2.6 billion people drinking tea every single day. That's
Wow.
how popular it is every single day. For that kind of a beverage, the people who are making those beverage living under poverty while people are enjoying that as a second most popular beverage, that's not fair. So that's what
Absolutely.
we're trying to change. And our goal is to really get 1 million farmers out of poverty by selling their amazing teas at a great price, which is fair for them, fair for the consumers, fresh for the consumers, so that they're getting the quality that they want, and at the same time, really a way to bridge them to the farmers who are actually making them.
Wow, that's amazing mission, and I think your mission will be accomplished soon. I wish you good luck, and you're doing amazing. And I know you've been working for more than 7 years, and a long way to go. But again, we are here to support all those things you're doing. And I want to touch base with a really interesting business perspective here.
Mhm.
You mentioned about equity crowdfunding for this business, so if you can
Right.
elaborate a little bit about that, so that our
Yes.
listener can learn more.
Yes, absolutely. So one thing we do is out my business. The whole business has was started with the power of the crowd, right? So when I started my business in 2016, the first time I got support in terms of money was through my Kickstarter campaign, where I was raising about $30,000 to get
Hmm.
my business off the ground. More than 487, I think was the number. 487 strangers from all over the world actually helped me build that business, and I was able to raise more than $5,000. Sorry, $50,000, and
Wow.
it was all because of power of the crowd. People give chipping in $10, $20, $100, whatever. So that was kind of like the power. I understood the power of the crowd at that point. And that was not
Absolutely.
for equity. That was just for, pre-orders. But
Hmm.
now we want to give the same opportunity to every single people that have been with us, every customer that we sell our teas to, every well-wisher that we have in our family and friends, every single person around the world who knows we can do better.
Yep.
We want to give them an opportunity to invest in the company itself. So you
Okay.
can actually go and invest with as little as $250. That's
Okay.
that's the minimum that you can invest. We have people investing from $250,000 to $100,000 in
Okay.
our campaign. So we are raising $600,000. We are almost at 350 $1,000, a little over 50% of our goal. And you can, it's as easy as you can go in and, just put your preferred amount. You sign a contract saying this is for the equity when we are raising the next round and all of that. So every single thing is jotted down over there, and it makes you an investor where you're seeing every single updates about the company, what's happening in the company every single year. You're basically a shareholder after that. So interestingly enough, what the power has again spoken, and we
Hmm.
have people from so many different countries just chipping in a few $250, $500, whatever, to really become a part of the movement. It is not
Sure.
just a company at this point; it is really a movement to make the tea industry fair and better for the producers, for the people who make teas on every single daily basis. So it's that.
So,
And
so Nis, where can people find this opportunity? Like, is it in your website, or is this how do you do that?
yes, so on our website, if you on the top banner, you'll see a section that says invest. So you can go there and it'll open up a page on WeFunder. Or if you can just go to WeFunder, WEFUNDER.com/ Nepal Tea Collective.
Okay.
If you open that, yeah, you'll be able to see exactly what we're doing. We want to be one of those companies which is super transparent with every single thing. So you'll actually be able to see what are the finances of the company, what are we doing, and every single little detail. And you can actually
So
invest.
anybody in the world can do this, not only in the
Anybody in
US.
the world,
Okay.
anybody in the world can actually invest.
Absolutely, that's amazing, man. So yeah, I mean, I guess this is the opportunity. So everyone should look into Nepal Tea Collective website or wefounder.com so that they can, you can go and see what is about and how you can benefit all yourself and other people in the world. You know. So I have a few more questions to go. As I wanted to know, in today's world, I know everyone is thinking about community, right? What does community mean to you, Anish?
Yeah, so community really, as I mentioned earlier, it has become, uh, what has how my father started the whole company was because of the power of community. 100 farmers coming together and
Hmm.
really starting that company. As I really mentioned just right now about how I started my company in 2016 and 2017. I did this community crowdfunding to get my business off the ground. And now I'm doing this community round or equity crowdfunding where the community comes together to build that business. So community really is the sole bread and butter for the business and getting anything out of it. So it's so interesting how the community at Nepalti Collective is coming up, because the same people, the community includes the farmers, every single stakeholder. So the farmers and the consumers who are actually buying some of these teas, and they are also the investors of the company itself. So that is such a beautiful bond of, farmers, customers, and investors kind of sharing the same platform to make a very impactful company. So that is really kind of how I see community as, really creating community back home with the farmers and really creating community with the customers here who are also going to be in the community of the investors. So all of this is everything that I do revolves around this community where, we're not trying to leave behind any single farmer in Nepal. We're not trying to leave anybody, even with investments. I think, if I was going on a traditional route, there will be only certain people who would be able to invest because they need to be accredited investors and all of that stuff. But now anybody in the world can invest. So anybody can become a part of that community. So community really is about, for us, it's really the living community that brings every single idea that we think of to life. So that is really what community means to us.
Oh wow, that's fascinating and very very interesting. I'm really honored today to basically learn so many things about your company, your mission, and the whole thing about it. I think it's beautiful. I have another question for you, Nis, and it's another. I always ask to my guests is what you have done so much, such a young age, doing amazing things, right? What is your biggest win in your life, and how you define success?
Yeah. So one of my biggest wins is really, it's so interesting. It's something that I always think about college, and it's not necessarily in business, but when I was in college, I was able to, along with my friend Amigo, he is my now co-founder. So we both were almost like homesick. So we wanted to go back to Nepal and do something. We were always passionate about doing something in Nepal. So because again, the same thing about college where, there were not many resources, but we were passionate in terms of we wanted to go back to Nepal and try to do volunteer and all of that in Nepal. So we pitched an idea of to our honors program asking, hey, can we take American students, go to one of the rural parts of Nepal and build a classroom for the underprivileged children? And yeah, it was like, it was kind of far-fetched idea, but at the same time, for almost 1 year of managing all of the, bureaucracies of a college and all of that, what happened was they paid both of us to take American students back to Nepal and build classroom for the underprivileged children. So first year we took 2 people back to Nepal, did a little bit of homestay and built a classroom for the underprivileged children at Tanahu, Udindunga Tanahu. It's called Maya Universe Academy.
Is this the project Maya we're talking about?
Yes. And we saw that, and then we made a small little documentary, brought it back to the college, and we showed it to the college. Everybody was in tears, and they said, hey, you know what? You're doing such a fantastic job. Why don't you do it for the next year? And they funded us to go back to Nepal to do it the next year as well. Wow. So now on the second year, we took almost 8 students and a ceramic professor to actually build a library this time for the same school. And we also did water filtration systems and all of that. So that happened. And then finally, I graduated already, and I get a call from the president of the college saying, hey, you know what? You've taken a lot of our students to Nepal and done some work. So I want to come and see. And so after I graduated, I had given it to another person, delegated, and he had taken the lead on it. So the next year, the third year, the president of the college comes back to Nepal and it was right during the earthquakes time. So he visits some of the places that we have done this project and sees how have we impacted. He was so impressed. What he
Hmm.
did was, when he came back, he said he created a fund.
Hmm.
Through that fund, he sponsors one Nepali student. It has to be Nepali student
Hmm.
to come to Kobe Soyer College every single year on a full
Wow,
scholarship.
that's amazing.
So now, the thing that I love about this so much is that one simple, humble idea of, really going back to Nepal and doing some volunteer work culminated into a project, which is annual project, which is impactful for the students. Plus, it created a long lasting impact of one student fully covered can come to the US and study for their four years of undergraduate studies in one of the universities of Nepal because of this idea. Like the
Yeah.
snowballing idea of that I really love, and I really think like that is one of my biggest achievements of being able to create such a platform, which was unintentional at that point. Who would have thought? But at the
Hmm.
same time, the impact of that little idea is now helping students come to the US and be able to get that education for free.
Wow,
So, which
that's
is,
amazing.
I think that would have been one of my biggest achievements. And to define success, there's a lot of different ways, but I think one of the things I always think of this marker of success is when somebody else writes a book about you. So I
Hmm.
think that is kind of like a thing where I have, and it comes from my father. He just had his second book written about him, and so he has a lot of so much learnings in that. And then I think it's be it small, big, whatever, but somebody else decides to write a book on you. That
Yes.
that defines success for me.
Yes, wow, amazing, man. So this is so amazing things. I've learned so much about you, your journey, your successes, and impact you're making. Really privileged, and believe it or not, we're towards the end of the show. And my last question today would be, where can people find you, and what is the one thing you can share before you leave?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I because of the nature of my business, I have to be very social. So
Absolutely.
I'm on pretty much all of this. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. But one place, LinkedIn would be the best place to find me. I'm pretty active there. And if you want, you can just write to me at Nish at
Hmm.
nepalteacollective.com. And then, yeah, so one learning or something that I can pass on is, I think I would share this every single time, is it could be a little counterintuitive to think about it, but my advice is basically just start. Because if you people sometimes waste so much time on the research and figuring out every single thing and doing way ton of research, that they never take the first step of doing something that you want to do or love to do. um, I kind of feel like, if you have a hunch for doing something, trying something, do some research, obviously, get into a little bit of that research phase, but then take the first step. If you don't take the first step, the research and all of that, it's not gonna do anything. So a lot
Yeah.
of earnings is actually on the go. If I had known how difficult food business is, maybe I would have not even started.
Absolutely.
So just start, take that first step, and everything will unfold from there. And don't forget to manifest, don't forget to dream, really,
Hmm.
because y- y- only if you dream, really, you can see or make a pathway to get there, right? So don't forget to dream.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. I mean, taking massive action is the key to anything in life. So I totally agree. And you are taking it. And again, thank you so much, Nish, for your time today. And anyone who's listening or watching this, I really appreciate again your time. And thank you. Oh, and hope everything is doing well. And see you next time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Sachin. It was really nice catching up, and thank you for providing the opportunity. I think one of the ways, you are helping a lot of people is also creating this platform where people like us, or anybody in the world, can really have an access to sharing their stories. And I really believe that every single person has their own stories of inspiration. And thank you for providing this opportunity to share.
Thank you, and see you next time. Take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Dream Big and Think Different. We hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to subscribe to our show so you don't miss any gold nuggets. And we'd appreciate it if you could rate and leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, and other platforms. Until next time.